On my wedding night, I hid under the bed to tease my husband. But when another woman walked in, what I heard left me frozen. When a playful wedding prank revealed the most brutal truth of my life, I held my breath, pressing my cheek against the cool, hard wooden floor beneath the massive wooden bed, trying not to laugh. My bright white wedding dress, which I still hadn't changed out of since the ceremony, floating around me like a little cloud, the veil still tucked in the box, springing loose above my head. If Blake saw me like this, looking like a tiny angel crawling out from under the bed, he would rush toward me and rip this wedding dress off. I thought to myself, imagining my newlywed husband walking into the room, picturing him tearing through every corner, calling out in frantic worry until I burst out screaming, "Surprise!" Because back when we first met, Blake was different, fun, carefree, eyes sparkling and a contagious smile, the kind of man who used to show up outside my window at midnight with his acoustic guitar, singing blues until the neighbors started yelling and threatening to call the police, and I would run outside in my pajamas and bunny slippers, and we would sprint away together, laughing like children, even though we were both in our 30s. But the door creaked open, and instead of my husband's familiar footsteps, I heard the distinct clicking of my mother-in-law's heels. Veronica entering the room with the authority she always carried, as if this was her territory, her kingdom, where she was the absolute queen, and she said, "Yes, Denise, I'm home," into the phone as she sat right on the edge of the bed where I was hiding, the springs squeaking and forcing me to press myself even flatter against the floor while she continued, "No, impossible. That girl turned out to be very obedient. Too obedient, I think. Blake said she's practically an orphan. Her father is a low-paid engineer at a factory, barely getting by. I personally went to see her house, a shabby little unit in a run-down building in Decatur. Such a pity. But now my Blake has the upper hand." And I felt my blood turn cold because obedient orphan. None of that was true. My father was an engineer, yes, but also the owner of Miller Engineering, a humble man who never flaunted his position, and that apartment in the old building belonged to my late aunt, kept for sentimental reasons because he grew up there, and we only stayed there occasionally, since in reality, we lived in a spacious 3-bedroom condo in Atlanta's wealthy Buckhead neighborhood. But I simply never felt the need to brag about any of that to my future mother-in-law. The call continued as Veronica said, "Do you understand, Denise? The plan is very simple." And I heard the faint click of a lighter, even though Blake had sworn she quit smoking 10 years ago when he asked us to move in with her. And she went on, "They will live together for 6 months, a year at most. When the condo papers are transferred, then Blake will start saying they're not compatible. I'll step in. I'll say the daughter-in-law disrespects me, talks back to me, can't cook, keeps the place messy. You know, the usual procedure. They'll have an amicable separation, and the condo will go to Blake. The girl won't fight. What can a little country girl do to us anyway? Blake and I have planned it all out." And when the call ended, she wandered around the room, opening drawers, and I heard the sound of my jewelry being placed on the dresser as she hummed happily and tried on all my bracelets, moving through all the closets until the phone rang again, and she answered, "Hello, Blake, darling. I'm in your room. No, your newlywed wife is not here. Maybe she's out celebrating with friends. Don't worry, she can't escape now. She's wearing the ring on her finger. The stamp is on the certificate. It's done. Just remember what we planned. She needs to understand who runs this house. And never let her cry or throw a tantrum. It's all the same. Drive safely, son, and since Olivia's pregnant, I will go to her checkups with her next time. You should hold back. I'll stay a bit longer. I'm going to smoke a cigarette. I'll open the window so the smoke won't stink up the whole place. I don't want your wife starting to complain." I lay under the bed, feeling the world around me collapsing. I was shaking, not from the cold, but from betrayal, anger, and disgust. The man I had entrusted my whole life to turned out to be a liar, a cheater, an accomplice in a scheme to steal my apartment for his mother, and the signs had always been there. I remembered how Blake insisted that the condo should be in my name only. "Baby, the paperwork will be easier, and you'll feel more secure." "It's yours," he said, kissing my forehead. And I, the fool, believed him. I also remembered Veronica's probing questions about my family. And your mother? You have no one else? Oh, what a tragedy. Poor girl. That look, which I had mistaken for kindness, was actually pure calculation, the cold instinct of a predator assessing its prey. Veronica got up from the bed, pacing the room, before stopping in front of the mirror, saying, "Don't worry, Denise. Patience. I endured my late husband for 30 years until he died. And now the house, the properties, the accounts are all mine. He thought I was some country bumpkin who only knew how to make soup. That room will be mine too," she scoffed sharply, and then left the room. I stayed frozen for a long moment, too terrified to move, then slowly crawled out, sat on the floor, and hugged my knees. My wedding dress was covered in dust, my veil torn, but none of that mattered. What mattered was deciding what I needed to do next. My first instinct was to pack up and leave immediately, in my wedding dress, in the middle of the night, but something new rose inside me, a cold, steely resolve. "No, they will pay," I whispered as I stood up. I had already started recording when I heard the keys in the door, originally wanting to capture Blake's reaction to my little prank. Now I had an ace card. But one ace wasn't enough. I needed the whole deck. I hurriedly changed into jeans and a sweater, then sat down at my laptop. Blake wouldn't be home soon, and I intended to use this time. The first call was to my father, John. Even though it was late, he picked up immediately. "Princess, why aren't you sleeping? Calling your dad on your wedding night," he said, his voice a mix of affection and concern. "Dad, I need to talk seriously. Do you remember offering to transfer your shares in the company to me?" There was a brief silence. "Eleanor, what happened? Did that idiot do something to you?" "Dad, nothing has happened yet, but I need a commitment. Can you postpone signing the papers tomorrow?" "Of course, sweetheart, and we will also stop transferring Aunt Clara's condo to your name." "Thank you, Dad. I'll explain everything later." No need. From the moment I met Blake, I knew he was an opportunist. And his mother? Please. But you wouldn't listen. You were in love. "I'm sorry, Dad." The next call was to Lauren, my best friend and also my lawyer. "Lauren, I'm sorry for calling this late. I need legal advice. If a condo is under my name and I bought it before the wedding, does my husband have any rights to it?" The silence on the other end told me she was completely shocked by what I'd just said. Then she suddenly yelled, "Eleanor, what is going on? Are you thinking about divorce? The wedding was literally today." "Lauren, just answer." I cut her off. I didn't have time. "If you bought it before the wedding and it's in your name only, then it's separate property. He can only claim ownership if he proves he invested money into renovations or upgrades." "Why are you asking this?" "I'll explain tomorrow. Around 10, can you come to my place?" "Of course." After the call with Lauren, I put my phone down, my hand still trembling slightly from the adrenaline. The room was pitch dark, with only the dim glow from my laptop screen lighting my face. The ticking clock echoed in the suffocating silence. Then suddenly, from a distance, came the familiar sound of an engine. The low growl of the sleek black Audi Blake loved bragging about as our first shared asset. The crunch of tires rolling over the gravel in the front yard grew louder, then stopped. My heart clenched. He was home earlier than expected. Keys jingled outside the front door. A sharp click as the lock turned, the heavy door swung open, and a blast of icy night air rushed down the hallway. His leather shoes thudded steadily against the wooden floor downstairs, slow, deliberate steps climbing the stairs. I could even hear Blake mumbling, "Eleanor, baby, I'm home." I slammed my laptop shut, shoved the dusty, ruined wedding dress into the corner of the half-open closet, wrapped the crumpled veil around my arm, and stuffed it deep into a drawer. My phone, with the precious recording, I slipped into my sweater pocket, my hands shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I rushed into the adjoining bathroom, turned the shower on full blast to drown out any noise, pretending I'd just finished bathing. Warm steam fogged up the space. I quickly smoothed my tangled hair, wiped my face, and forced a normal smile in the hazy mirror, though my eyes were still red from anger and the pain I hadn't had time to hide. Blake's footsteps stopped right outside the bedroom door. The door slammed shut. Blake turned around. "Eleanor, where are you, baby? I drove across half the city looking for you," he said with concern in his voice, though now I could hear the falseness beneath it. I walked down the stairs slowly, trying to look calm. "Hi, love. I was just tidying up a bit and changing." Blake kissed and held me, and it took everything in me not to push him away. "Why are you so cold? Are you freezing?" Blake kissed me again, and I had to fight the urge to pull back. "Just showered. I'm just tired. Let's go to bed. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." "Tired? Let's take a 2-week vacation." "Sure, but the new condo, we still have to reorganize things." We went back to the bedroom, and Blake headed to the shower. I lay there, eyes wide open, planning. I had 2 weeks off to sort everything out. During that time, I needed to gather evidence, protect my assets, and teach those bastards a lesson they would never forget, and I knew exactly how to do it. The next morning, Blake woke me with a kiss. "Good morning, Mrs. Harrison," he sang. I almost corrected him. My passport still said Miller. But then I stopped myself. "Good morning. Do you want some coffee?" "Sure, and maybe some scrambled eggs too, if you don't mind. Mom said you're a great cook." I almost laughed. Yesterday, that same mother told someone she planned to say her daughter-in-law was incompetent. Couldn't cook, couldn't do anything. "Of course, darling, go shower. I'll make breakfast." While Blake showered and hummed a pop song, I turned on the recorder on my phone and hid it between the spice jars. Then, I grabbed a pack of frozen pre-made pancakes from the freezer. I heated them in the microwave and paired them with whipped cream and jam. I decided not to make the scrambled eggs on principle. He could be satisfied with whatever he got. "Great, pancakes. You made these early?" Blake walked out of the bathroom in his robe, towel drying his wet hair. "Yes, especially for you," I answered with a smile. He sat down at the table, took a bite, and frowned. "They look strange, a bit chewy." "New recipe, low fat, healthier," I replied calmly, still pouring coffee. "Thanks, love. I was thinking, what if you put me on the condo paperwork? You know, so I can handle repairs and stuff when you're busy." I sipped my coffee, deliberately stretching the silence. "Why would you need that? I can handle everything. Or do you think I'm not capable?" "No, of course you are. But, well, I'm the man, the head of the household, and it would make us feel more connected." "All right, darling, we'll talk later. Today I have plans with a friend." "Which friend?" His tone sharpened with suspicion. "Lauren, you know her. We've been meaning to meet for a while." "Ah, her. Fine, but don't come home late. Mom's coming today, for dinner. Make something nice." I smiled. "Of course, dear. What is your mother like?" "She eats everything, but it has to be something that takes effort. First impressions matter." If Blake knew the only impression his mother had of me was the bedroom with my name on it, and more importantly, that I already knew their entire scheme, he would have choked on those pancakes. But I just nodded. As soon as Blake left, apparently to meet friends, though I was certain he was rushing to report back to his mother about the progress of their plan, I checked my phone. The recording was perfect, clear, especially the part where he talked about being the head of the household. At exactly 10, Lauren arrived. "All right, tell me what happened," she said. I played the recording from the night before. Lauren listened, eyes widening. "Jesus, Eleanor, this is blatant fraud. We can sue them." I leaned back in my chair, fingers interlocked tightly to keep them from shaking with anger. "We can, but I don't just want to sue," I said, my voice dropping low, like a blade touching a whetstone. "I want them to learn a lesson, permanently." Lauren didn't respond right away. She stared at me for a long moment, then smirked, the kind of smile a lawyer makes only when she's genuinely intrigued. Well, she said, dragging her chair closer, looks like the lioness finally stepped out of the bushes. She tapped her fingertip lightly on my hand. I've told you this for years, Eleanor. You're not weak. You just never used your claws. Lauren opened her bag, pulled out a thick notebook. Let's see what we've got. She listed everything, reading while scribbling into the notebook. Recording of Veronica, recording of Blake, the new condo with both names on it, and, she raised an eyebrow, the receipts he bragged about paying. Wait, I said, leaning toward her, lowering my voice. Legally, yes, he paid. But in reality, I placed my hand on the folder. That money was mine. Lauren blinked, paused. You mean the trust fund? I inhaled slowly. My father set it up years ago. I gave that money to Blake, telling him I wanted to share the cost of the house. He withdrew all of it in cash, then put on a whole performance for his mother, handing the money to the seller as if it came from him. I let out a laugh, one with no humor at all. I thought he just wanted to look impressive. The air in the room tightened, tense as a drawn wire. Lauren crossed her arms, her eyes sharpening. And the transfers from your account to his? Anything there? I nodded. Yes, all through the bank. Clear trail. Lauren froze for a second, then let out a dry, delighted chuckle. Perfect! Eleanor, this is irrefutable evidence. She stood, gathered all the documents spread across the table, and aligned them neatly like she was preparing for a legal surgery. All right, listen carefully. Her voice was low, sharp, each sentence landing like a hammer strike. First, move all your money into accounts Blake has no access to, as fast as possible. A red bullet point went onto the notebook. Second, gather more evidence, every word, every call, every time he asks to control your assets. Then she placed both hands on the table, leaned forward, looking me dead in the eye. Her voice nearly a whisper, but sharp as a razor blade. And most importantly, don't reveal anything. Not your father's shares, not his power, not the house he plans to transfer to you. For now, play the obedient wife, until everything is ready. The doorbell rang. My father had arrived with the notary. Dr. Miller, a silver-haired man in a crisp suit, laid the documents on the table. So, we are canceling the transfer of 49% of the shares in Miller Engineering, as well as the transfer of the property at 245 Republic Avenue, correct? I nodded. And this document, my father added, is a power of attorney to manage all my assets in case I become temporarily incapacitated, just in case. While the papers were being signed, my father pulled me aside. Now can you tell me what's going on? I played the recording for him. He listened in silence, his expression hardening. The devil! He muttered finally through clenched teeth. I knew you could handle this on your own. You're just like your mother, strong and determined. She would be proud of you, but if you need anything, I'm always here. By evening, all the paperwork was ready. The money had been moved into new accounts, and I had outlined a perfect plan. All that was left was to execute it. I went to the supermarket to buy groceries for dinner. Veronica eats everything? Perfect, I thought. She would eat everything tonight. I bought chicken gizzards to make broth, rice, margarine to replace real butter, and, most importantly, a box of expired corned beef, which amused me far more than it should have. She said I couldn't cook? We would see about that. Back at the condo, I got to work. I prepared the broth with extra bay leaves and peppercorns to make it sharp and spicy. I toasted the bread until it looked nearly burnt. I mixed the canned meat with boiled potatoes and mayonnaise, creating a dish that vaguely resembled tuna salad. And the final masterpiece was a cake made of ladyfinger biscuits and margarine whipped with sugar. A work of art, I said, satisfied. Blake came home at 7, and at exactly 7:30, Veronica arrived, wearing a new suit, hair immaculate, perfume expensive. Eleanor, darling, she trilled, blowing a kiss. What are we having tonight? I haven't eaten all day. I'm dieting. With an innocent expression, I began setting the table. First came the broth. Veronica took a sip and immediately coughed. What is this? Seasoning, my grandmother's recipe. She's from the countryside, I replied without blinking. Ah, the countryside, of course. Next came the bread. My mother-in-law stared at the grayish block on the plate with blatant disgust. Overcooked, very good for digestion. I don't think so, thank you. I'm dieting. She didn't even touch the tuna-like salad, claiming she was allergic to mayonnaise. And when I, with triumphant grace, brought out the cake, Veronica stood up from the table. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Must be the stress from yesterday. Blake, take me to the car. As soon as they left, I went straight to the window. From there, I could see Veronica gesturing wildly, scolding her son, while he tried to defend himself. Eventually, she got into her car and drove off. Blake walked into the kitchen, looking as though he had swallowed something bitter. He dropped his keys onto the table with a sharp clack, then turned to me, eyebrows drawn tight. Eleanor, what is this? His voice was so sharp the air itself seemed to freeze. I turned around, still wiping a spoon, maintaining calm. What do you mean? What is this? Dinner. He pointed at the still uncleared table. You ruined it on purpose. I blinked innocently, pretending not to understand. Why would you say that? I spent all day cooking. Blake let out a short, irritated laugh. My mother said they don't even serve stuff like this in basic training camps. A tiny stab, but sharp. I laid the spoon down slowly, as if every motion required consideration. Oh, I didn't know your mother was that delicate. I looked up, my expression so calm that he had to glance away. You said she eats everything. Yes, Blake snapped, louder now. Everything except garbage. I froze. The breath caught in my chest. His tone, his eyes, that casual contempt, every bit of it stripped away the mask I was recording him behind every day. My whole body trembled, but I made it look like trembling from hurt. I brought my hand to my mouth, letting it shake just a bit more. How could you talk to me like that, Blake? I lowered my head slightly, just enough for my hair to hide the real expression in my eyes. Do you know what I did today? I went to the store. I stood by the hot stove all afternoon. I tried my best to make a decent dinner for you and your mother. My voice cracked. A tear slipped from the corner of my eye and ran down my cheek. Perfect, right on cue. Those college acting classes, not a waste at all. Blake deflated instantly. His shoulders dropped. His mouth parted like someone who had just broken something valuable. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I just reacted. You know how my mother is. She's used to higher standards. He stepped toward me, hand reaching out as if to pull me into his arms. But inside me, something cold and razor-sharp was forming, growing quietly and steadily like ice. I let him touch my shoulder, only to mark the exact amount of guilt he was swallowing. I lowered my gaze, letting one more tear fall, just enough to make Blake believe I had truly been hurt. In reality, I was calculating my next move. The following days passed with a strange rhythm. Blake complained about trivial things, demanded explanations for every bit of money spent, and hinted repeatedly that he should be added to the ownership documents. I pretended to be a hurt but obedient wife while quietly continuing to collect evidence. My phone, always recording, became my greatest ally. One night, after I told Blake to go out with friends and left the house myself, I obtained a priceless piece of proof. Blake and his mother. Does she suspect anything? No, she's completely normal. But the condo is in her name, and I'm the one who paid for it. The plan is still perfect. But what if she sues me? How could she? Her father is some regular laborer, can't even afford a lawyer. Once she loses the house and her money, she'll have nothing left. 1 week later, I decided I had enough evidence. It was time to act. The first call was to my mother-in-law. Veronica, this is Eleanor. I kept my voice soft, so soft even I barely recognized it. I want to apologize for the dinner the other night. Could you come tomorrow? I'll prepare something really special. On the other end, a long silence stretched across several heartbeats. Eleanor! Her voice came, shrill but layered with caution. I'm not sure. I bit my lip, lowered my voice by a full tone, as if confessing something deeply sincere. Please, I really want to improve our relationship. You're like a second mother to me. I could almost hear her triumphant inhale through the phone. Veronica finally replied, dragging the sound out as if savoring my humiliation. All right, I'll come. But I'm warning you, I'm very picky about food. I smiled. Of course, Mother. I'll do my best. I hung up. The room fell silent instantly. I turned, walked straight to the table, and picked up my phone again. The second call was to my ally. Lauren picked up just as the phone rang once. Ready for the big day tomorrow? I asked. Lauren chuckled softly. I've been ready for ages. I have all the documents. And, her voice dropped, edged with a wicked kind of excitement, I also prepared a little gift for your mother-in-law. I raised an eyebrow, sat down, resting my elbow on the table. What kind of gift? Lauren paused for a second, the kind of deliberate pause meant to build suspense. You'll see, she said, her voice low like a promise. And trust me, it's going to be explosive. A slow smile spread across my face, opening like a perfect crack across ice. Tomorrow, every piece on the board would fall exactly where it needed to be. That evening, I told Blake that his mother had accepted the invitation. Really? She's coming after the last dinner? I convinced her. I told her I wanted us all to get along. Good, that's the right attitude. She likes being respected. I've noticed. Hey, Blake, how about we invite a few more people? Some of your friends, maybe. For what? To make the dinner more lively. A real family evening. Good idea. I'll invite Malik, his wife Talia, and Amare. Mom will love it. She adores them. The next day, I truly gave it everything I had. I ordered food from a good catering company, decorated the dinner table carefully, and even bought flowers. Guests started arriving at 7. First were Malak and Talia, then Amare, and finally Veronica. Oh, lovely, my mother-in-law exclaimed. Eleanor, congratulations. Now this is the standard. Everyone sat down, and the compliments and polite chatter began. Veronica relaxed and started telling anecdotes from Blake's childhood. Blake, remember when you were 5 and you said you'd only marry a princess? Mom, please. Well, it was a cute wish for a child. Of course, you didn't get a princess, but Eleanor isn't too bad. The words "isn't too bad" lingered in the air. I stood up. Everyone, I'd like to make a toast to our family. May it always hold honesty, trust, and love. Glasses clinked. And now, I continued, I want to show you something interesting. It's a recording I accidentally captured on our wedding day. I took out my phone and pressed play on the audio of Veronica's phone conversation. The room fell into a heavy silence. Only my mother-in-law's voice came from the speaker. The plan is simple. We separate without causing a scandal, and we keep the condo. Veronica turned pale instantly as the first lines came through the phone's speaker, her martini glass shaking so hard, the liquid sloshed over the rim. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled against her chair, as if her entire body had lost its anchor. Blake jumped up like someone had shocked him with electricity. Eleanor? He almost shouted, face drained of color. What is this? Where did you get that? I rotated the phone in my palm, lifting my gaze to meet his, right into his fear-widened eyes. A small, almost gentle smile touched my lips. Oh, my dear husband, I whispered. I was just hiding under the bed. I wanted to prank you a little. I tilted my head. But it seems the surprise was mine. Blake's face went ashen. Veronica screamed, her voice slicing through the air. That is a trap. It's fake. She edited the audio! She stumbled back, hitting the edge of the table so hard the plates rattled. I didn't even look at her. I just tapped the screen again. The sound of Blake and his mother talking filled the room. Clear, complete, down to every breath. About a year later, I divorce, keep the condo. What can she do? Her father's dirt poor. Talia, Malik's wife, snapped her head toward Blake, eyes wide, disgust visible as she pushed her chair back. Blake reached out as if to grab my phone, but I stepped back, holding it steady, my hand as firm as steel. "Wait," I said, my voice still soft but sharp as metal. "That's not all." I placed the phone on the table, letting the screen's glow wash over their faces, pale, defeated, ashamed. Then I looked around the table, from Veronica to Blake to Malik and the others. Right at that moment, the doorbell rang. Lauren walked in, holding a stack of documents. "Good evening. I'm attorney Lauren Brooks. Veronica, this is for you." She handed Veronica an envelope. Veronica's hands trembled as she took it. "What is this?" "A criminal complaint. You see, I did a little digging. Turns out your husband's death wasn't as natural as it looked. A healthy man suddenly dies of a heart attack 1 month after his wife transfers all his assets into her name. And conveniently, no autopsy. You insisted on cremation, but I have a statement from a nurse who saw you inject something into his IV line." It was a bluff, completely fabricated. But Veronica had no way of knowing that. Her face drained further as she collapsed into her chair. "No, that's not true. I didn't do anything." Blake looked paralyzed. "Mom, is any of that true?" The guests were stunned. Talia was the first to react. "Malik, we are leaving, and we'll be discussing your involvement in this mess at home." They left. Amari muttered an awkward goodbye and disappeared. I stepped closer to my husband. "Blake, here are the documents. The bank transfers from my account to yours, the money you used to buy the condo, my money. And here is my father's tax return, chief engineer at a defense industry company, with an income that would make your mother's eyes bulge. And here are the papers for our real condo in downtown Atlanta, not the shabby one in the suburbs your mother visited. And you know what else? I could call the police right now and report both of you for fraud. But I won't." "Why?" Blake asked quietly. "Because I'm not like you. I'm giving you one chance. You and Veronica will stand up right now. She will leave and never appear in my life again. If I ever see or hear anything about you again, all of this goes straight to the police. And not just the condo fraud." "Eleanor, Blake began. "Don't say anything. Just pack your things and go. We'll file for divorce tomorrow." "But can't we fix this?" "Fix what, Blake? That you cheated? That you conspired with your mother to steal from me? That you thought I was some country idiot? Or that your mistress is pregnant?" "No, darling, you can't fix that." Veronica staggered to her feet. "Let's go, Mom," Blake muttered, exhausted. They slammed the door behind them. Only Lauren and I remained. At last, I allowed myself to cry. Lauren held me. "You know, Lauren, I loved him. I trusted him." "I know, but it's better to know the truth now than years later." The divorce happened quickly and quietly. Blake didn't demand anything, likely out of fear of scandal. Veronica vanished. Rumor had it she'd moved in with a sister in Savannah. I stayed in my condo, nursing the hurt and starting over. And in that new beginning, I found a strength I never knew I had. I had protected my home, my father's company, and Aunt Clara's property. All my personal accounts were now shielded from Blake's knowledge. In the weeks that followed, I had time to think about the elaborate scam that had almost cost me everything. It had been planned for months. Veronica carefully assessing the supposed poverty of my family, Blake insisting on taking the condo while using my money to buy it, and their detailed strategy to create conflict, to justify a divorce, and seize the assets. What amazed me most was how profoundly they underestimated me. They saw only an obedient, orphaned girl from the countryside, easy to manipulate, incapable of fighting back. They never suspected that the shabby house in Decatur was a family property of sentimental value, that my modest father was actually a high-level executive, or that I had both legal expertise and substantial financial resources. Their biggest mistake was assuming appearances told the whole story. They judged my worth through a narrow lens and never bothered to look deeper. Blake's performance when paying for the condo with his money from my trust fund withdrawn in cash, was staged to establish proof of ownership for later. The irony was almost poetic. While Veronica spent 30 years playing the dutiful wife to inherit her husband's estate, she taught her son to prey on someone she believed would be easier. But this time, the supposed victim was far more dangerous than she imagined, and she knew exactly how to use it. The reveal at the dinner party was my masterpiece of psychological warfare. By assembling their friends as witnesses, I ensured their humiliation was complete and public, making any attempt at social retaliation impossible. Fabricating the criminal complaint about Veronica's husband was a calculated risk, but her panic confirmed she had indeed done something questionable, even if I could never prove it. Most importantly, I realized that love built on lies isn't love at all. It's exploitation dressed up as affection. Blake's midnight love confessions and playful romance were merely bait. Once I was tied down by vows and legal documents, the real plan began. Systematic psychological manipulation designed to make me grateful to escape with nothing. 6 months after the divorce, I received an unexpected visitor. John, my father, arrived carrying a bottle of champagne and a thick stack of documents. "What's all this for?" I asked, pointing at the champagne. "Your inheritance," he smiled. "I've retired, Princess. Miller Engineering is yours now. All of it." I stared at the folder containing the full transfer of ownership. "Dad, I can't." "You can. You proved you're stronger and smarter than I ever imagined. Your mother would be so proud." His eyes softened. "You know, when you called me that night, I was terrified. I thought you were in physical danger. But watching you dismantle their entire scheme piece by piece, that was strategic genius. The company Blake once believed was merely my father's workplace was now mine. The contracts, government licenses, advanced engineering projects, everything my father had built over 3 decades of dedicated work was now in my hands. A year later, I moved back to the family home in Buckhead, turning Aunt Clara's house in Decatur into a shelter for women recovering from domestic abuse. I couldn't help but recognize the irony. The building Veronica once dismissed as a shack had become a refuge for women escaping the very kind of financial and emotional manipulation she had tried to inflict on me. Wealth gave me choices most abused women do not have, and I used that privilege to help those less fortunate. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't decided to hide under the bed that night. Would I have eventually discovered their scheme? Or would it have taken months, maybe years, of slowly being broken down, manipulated, until I believed I was useless and unworthy, grateful for whatever scraps they left me after the divorce? The wedding dress, dusty and torn from the night I accidentally overheard everything, still hangs in my closet, not to remember a lost love, but to remind me of the night I discovered my real strength. Sometimes the most painful betrayals become the greatest gifts, revealing exactly who we are when everything we thought we knew is taken away. My father was right. I am just like my mother, strong, decisive, and utterly ruthless when it comes to protecting what matters most. As for Blake and Veronica, occasionally Blake still texts me, just to ask, "Are you okay?" I look at it. I don't feel anger. I don't feel regret. Only peace. I don't reply. I don't block him either. Blake no longer exists. He's nothing more than a fading shadow in the journey I have redrawn with my own hands.